Now, we got to talk about the casting of one of the major characters, Corlys Valerian, as a Black character and the resulting backlash, and what I think may be aroused from between the sheets and behind the scenes for all of us as a whole. When asked in an interview about why there is a lack of racial representation in the House of the Dragons, George R.R. Martin said this.
It's so monocultural because it's mostly been written by white men.
And when you think about that, it makes a lot of sense. We mostly write and comment on what is in our lived experience. So, of course, as a 60-something white male, he's going to write about a world that reflects his truth. I'm not mad at him for that. I see the uproar that has come around the fact that this cherished role of the beloved sea snake went to a Black man. And when I think about that, it's not surprising because we live in a world where racism is still a thing. And so that's real. Get that, and we know it. But I believe that there are some other underlying issues that show up, and I think that they play effect into the way that this has blown up in this way. But first off, let me just deal with the more obvious arguments right now so that we can get them out of the way. Like, I know we're going to get some trifling people and trifling things put into these comments, so it's going to be littered with the foolishness. I get it, but we're just going to deal with one of those points right now, and I'm going to say what I am going to say. Okay. So this argument that there is no way that a Valerian could be Black. And if you haven't read the series or know anything about it, the world building in this series has these characters that are being featured in House of the Dragon as blonde, pale, and for all considerations, they could be seen as white folk. I get it. They are white. But let's also think about the fact that this is a fantasy book. Keyword, a fantasy book. I'm going to say it one more time. It's a fantasy book where license and imagination can be used. That's what George did. He had an imagination. Corlys being a Black man doesn't somehow turn this story into another universe with different characters. It doesn't matter. And it can be just done. The Valerian Empire is a huge, huge place. And is it really a jump? Like, if we think about the ingenuity of Black folk, that we couldn't be a part of that universe, really? Like, Black folks reach, we reach everywhere. So why not Valeria? So now we realize that the arguments that are being used are minor at best as to why this couldn't be a Black guy. And so let me get down to what I think might be really happening here. Truthfully, I think it's got to do more with an underlying disruption around the entrenched narratives about Black men and the hypersexualization of their bodies. Yep. The entrenched power structure that sees white as right and darkness and dark people as less than is disrupted. And there is this ever-present understanding of white fragility. I told you, we gonna be different this time. I said it, white fragility. When we allow Black men to step into a positioning of power, it changes the dynamic. It ruptures us at a level, a subconscious level that we're not always aware of. So I'm going to just get us all to take a breath. Let's just take a breath. I know for me, I'm just going to be gentle, and I need to just make sure that as we step into this place, we can stay open. So I'm going to go get my sound bowl. Watch this. And I'm going to do this. Let's clear the air. Always peaceful. Is everybody good? All right, let's continue. Feared and reviled while still being admired and commodified. And that's whether it's for their athletic ability or their sexual prowess. Most Black men are viewed in our society with suspicion and menace, while still being held up as innovators and known to be the ones that will put it down, especially in the bedroom. You know what I mean by that. You know that whole saying, once you go Black, I don't believe the rest. You know what I'm saying. But do we? Do we really examine these preconceived premises of the Black man and their innate sexiness? And do we often think about how it shows up when we view them and their place in the world? Today, we're going to take a little bit of a dive in. We have to go back, though, in time. We have to go back and take a look at who we were before we were indoctrinated with these puritanical beliefs that set in through one of the big C's, colonialism. Contrary to how Africa, or Akabilon as it was originally named, Africa is a huge landmass with very different tribes and expressions of gender and sexuality. This patriarchal narrative was not the only expression of maleness that existed on the continent. Whether we talk about kunyaza, a practice that centers female pleasure and ejaculation as an obligatory expectation from the men, or the eerily similar polyamorous happenings of the Eli tribes in Zambia, or the fluid sexy of the last king, King Mwanga Elbasama Ikir of Uganda. Now he was a freak. There's lots of evidence that sexual expression, the ideas of masculinity, were very, very diverse and different prior to the colonial takeover. And I'm going to list some of the articles and spaces that I did my research from down below too, so that you can look into it further. And I'm going to also be doing a much more in-depth video around the hypersexualization of the Black man. But I just want you to get a bit of a gist of what's at play here. So there was a shift from the industrial age, which made us human chattel and the idea of human labor less desirable. And let's just be honest, it was much more expensive. That's really one of the major reasons why we changed once the industrial age started. But that change meant that there had to be new ways to control Black bodies because we were no longer enslaved. And one of the ways that this was done was by degrading Black men and honing in on this narrative that they were dangerous beasts who had insatiable carnal appetites and were coming for this ultimate prize, which, tell me you know what I'm talking about. Tell me you know. I know, take a guess where I'm going with this, but I'm talking about the ultimate prize, which, of course, was the white woman. The white woman. I am going to bring this back around to Corlys. I promise I will. Why I think that this is important, because this is why this idea of him, a Black man, playing this incredible character is stirring up a lot of things. There's a lot that's happening underneath our surface. And I think that it's time to acknowledge that the way that we have processed and viewed Black men has shown up in how they are perceived in this society we live in. This is still a system that is hierarchical in nature. People go up the ladder, and Black men are more subordinate. They are in positions that sit below how we view the cisgendered white man. Black men are seen mostly as just bodies, that their strength is to be used. They are to be used. White men We see them as the ones who are granting control. They are the ones that are the thinkers that create all of the stuff. And that then means that they get to be granted control over even the Black bodies. Corlys Valerian is that he, in the books, is actually that kind of incredible strategist and leader. And he's the commander of armies. So this is a real juxtapose because, yes, he is the white man that has the body, but he was also this great thinker. And so while we can give this role, this person, the idea of the body part because he's a Black man, the idea of him being the thinker, this brave strategist, and it being in the body of a Black man with blonde hair and all, is strange. But this time, I think we are going to get an opportunity to see all of it. He is going to be rocking all of it. Because you know what? We can be blonde too. Black people can be blonde too. That could be another video as well. Not today. I know it doesn't fit the narrative though for some people. And we know who them peoples are. By now, they probably done turn off this video. So, oh well. But here's the challenge. This is why it becomes a thing. Why do we just casually accept these distorted tropes about Black men? And why do they make us uncomfortable? I think that also has to do with the way that we just see masculinity as a whole. And what I'm witnessing, and I'm proud to witness, is that I think we are starting to shake up this idea of what genders should look like and the structure of what we consider as masculinity and femininity as a whole. For far too long, we have held men in this narrow scope of ability, and we've called out what we deem acceptable and unacceptable. And that leads to like a performative sense of masculinity. And when we have to perform what is not genuine, what doesn't come from the heart, it creates toxicity. And that brings me to toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is harmful to society as a whole, but it's also harmful to men. What it does is it creates a great disconnect for men from their relationships, from their emotions, and it creates challenges in what we see in the world. It is so real that men who feel they have to be and demonstrate performative masculinity have higher suicide rates. They have higher sexual assault rates and STD rates because normally they are less likely to discuss their health problems and or go to the doctor. Now, we all know men who, if you don't got your woman behind you, they ain't going to the doctor. We have got to offer spaces where men don't have to feel so trapped into these ideas. By now, I think you guys are realizing that Corlys is not Corlys is not Corlys. There is a bigger issue about the way that we as a society condition men to function within this narrow range of emotional expression rather than allowing them to step into the greatness of healthy ranges of emotion. If we allow men to step outside of just the anger and the aloofness and the coolness, we can create a whole new way of being. And I think at the very least, we've got to start being open to these conversations. They want men who have ability to go into that range of emotions that I'm talking about, emotionally intelligent. And they got to be able to hit it out of the box that way, as well as in the bedroom. And in fact, both of those things are linked. When you and your partner have that emotional connection, that's what drives the whole thing. When you think about Corlys, when you watch him do all of the amazing things that the sea snake does, because I know I'm going to be, I want you to think about how This is revolutionary for him to be setting up a whole new way of seeing the Black man. I'm just saying, I'm shouting him out because he's also a fellow Bayesian and British. We share that alignment. It's time. It is so time to create new spaces. Think about what that means to you.